Here we are in Detroit, Michigan at Youmacon 2013, and we have the fortune of interviewing Brad Swaile and with the guest interviewer, Lesley Scott. Lesley?
Thank you for finding some time to talk to us.
Not at all, my pleasure.
I guess my first question would be, you've been voice acting for many years. Approximately how old were you when you started?
I think my first voice gig was when I was about 14 years old.
Okay.
I had just kind of got into acting in general. I'd been doing theater in elementary school and whatnot.
Okay.
And then I think I was in grade 9, and my sister was big into theater, and she's a year older than me, so we're super tight. And I saw how well she was doing with her theater, so I kind of got jealous, I guess. So I begged my mom and dad, "Oh, can I try that too?" And they let me. And so I started off working with a place called the Vancouver Youth Theatre,
okay,
which is a great little organization, because what they would do is they'd cast a troupe of kids as actors, and then we'd play build a show and tour it around. And so I was working on a different show than my sister, and then at one point a couple spots opened up in her acting troupe, so I auditioned for it and I got in. So we actually got to act together and tour around together a little bit, which was incredible. Especially being a kid and doing that. And there was an agency right across the street that was kind of watching the kids that were coming through the theater, and they approached both me and my sister at one point and asked if we wanted to join the agency. Okay. And they said they'd start sending us out on auditions for like movies and TV shows and commercials and things. So that's kind of what I started doing, and then that led me to an audition, my very first voice audition for a cartoon series called My Little Ponytails, and I got the role of Ace, and that kind of opened up a whole new world of this, the idea that voice acting, that people actually do it as a job. I had never really made the connection before, and I grew up on cartoons, so you know, I was just immersed in the cartoon world. I never thought that there are people behind the scenes producing these things and people voice acting these things. So having that opportunity essentially led to more voice opportunities, and I've been doing it ever since.
Okay. I guess my next question, when did you start adding other things aside from voice acting, like conventions and
that's a good
other
question.
types of gigs?
I see. Yeah, other things. I've always done other things.
Well, yes.
I wanted to be an astronaut at one point. That didn't pan out.
No.
Still working on that. I don't know. I've always been an art guy. Never really schooled in art. But growing up, I always got in trouble in math class because I'd turn in my projects and they'd find all these little drawings of Ninja Turtles and things in the margins. And certain teachers didn't mind that so much. You know, in English class, I don't think they gave me too much grief. My math teacher did not like it at all. But I had one of those pens. You know those pens. You know those pens. Like those pens that have like the 4 colors on them.
Yes.
So it was green, blue, red, and black. So if with that pen, I could do 3 of the Ninja Turtles, and then if I used a highlighter, like a yellow highlighter mixed with the red, then I could get Michelangelo too. So, you know, I was drawing nunchucks and all that kind of stuff and doing little battle scenes and whatnot. So I've always had that going on. Now, it wasn't until 2002 when Gundam Wing came out and became extremely popular in North America that somebody contacted my agency and invited me to a convention. Okay. And I didn't even know these things really existed. I'd heard of, you know, sci-fi conventions, Star Trek conventions, things like that. I'd never been, but I'd heard of those things. And then I went to my first anime convention, and people generally have one of 2 reactions to their first convention. It's either shock and fear and uncomfortableness, or awe, but in a different way, where they just embrace the creative culture that spontaneously occurs at these events. And I was in the second category. And also having kind of an art background and being a big Halloween nerd and things like that, I really embraced every aspect of the fan culture that surrounds anime. And so since that's happened, I've kind of seen a lot of these conventions expand into various genres as well, which is really cool because I have interest in a lot of those genres also. So that's kind of, it happened essentially by accident because of one show. And generally what happens, you show up at one convention, and if you're kind of embracing what happens at these events, a lot of times you'll get invitations to other shows. And it's kind of gone from there. I really enjoy doing these things. My other job aside from the voice acting is graphic design and illustration. I did end up going to school for that and whatnot when I got out of high school. So as long as I can work some of these conventions in around my work schedules, I'll continue to do them because I really enjoy them.
Okay. How often do you sell any of your art aside from, because you do graphic design you do your own art digitally and by hand.
Right.
How often do you sell anything, or is it mostly just for charity events?
Yeah, I mean, the work that I do for my regular job is all specific to whatever customers, clients, and things like that we have. So obviously that's not, for the general public. As far as my own art goes, yeah, most of it is stuff that I've done for charity events.
Okay.
There was a convention in Vancouver that ran for several years, and it had been happening in Vancouver, and I had never been. And eventually, I got an invitation to it, and then I found out that they had a charity event, an auction that was supporting the BC Children's Hospital, and great, charity to be sponsoring. So
Definitely.
I really got excited about it. So I wanted to, contribute what I could. I didn't really have access to, volumes of DVDs or anything like that, so I figured, well, what can I do? And I'd been through Artist Alley so many times at these events that I thought, well, you know what? Maybe I should try doing kind of my own take on fan art. So that's what I was doing. I was doing these, 16 by 20 paintings of some characters that I've done in various shows, and then auctioning them off at the charity events. And I got really excited about that because, I mean, a lot of the people that show up at these events, and they're the most giving people that you'll ever meet. And you put them in a charity event, kind of scenario. They will, and they'll battle each other to try and be, the most generous and the most heartfelt. And yeah, it's a really infectious atmosphere and one of those things. So I got really excited, and I look forward to the charity events every year, and I'd bring as much stuff as I could. I'd do paintings, make prints, make plushies and things like that. So it was also a good little vehicle to kind of show the craftiness that I have, aside from what we do in the booth, and I can just nerd right out like the best of them, especially around Halloween time, let me tell you that.
Yeah. Do you create any of your own characters or stories for any of the paintings that you draw?
I have, one thing that I learned when I was in school for graphic design was one of my instructors in a course wanted us to keep a sketchbook. And that was one of the most important things that, for you aspiring artists out there, it's one thing that I definitely picked up from school that I've maintained, is keeping a sketchbook. And I've autographed a lot of sketchbooks at these events, and I always, with the artist's permission, love to do a little flip through to see what they have. Okay. And sometimes sketchbooks are full of these completed, gorgeous works, which is really incredible to see. And other times, the sketchbooks look more like mine do, where it's me basically thinking out loud and trying to get my ideas out there so that I can expand on them or edit them down or things like that. So I do, of course, have characters that I've developed and storylines that I've developed, and one of these days I do feel that I'll be ready to kind of produce my own cartoon. Okay. I dabbled in computer animation for a little bit, and it is something that I would like to get back into, but it's extremely time consuming. And so I have the job, I have the voice gig. I also am a big sports guy, so I play hockey in the winter and baseball in the summer. And I dabble in music a little bit too, so when I have that going on, there's not a lot of free time. So one of these days I'll section off some time so that I can get back into the animation end of things and hopefully be able to produce my own stories with my own characters. Yeah, so I have a lot in here and a lot on paper, and hopefully one day I'll get to present, I'll be brave enough to put them together and present it to the world, and hopefully cast myself as some of the voices. I don't know. Although at the same time, through these conventions, I've met some incredible voice actors, so I'd probably
use them.
I probably would, because I'm like, these guys are so talented. I really want them in my show, and then I'd put myself right out of a voice gig. But we'll see. We'll deal with that bridge when we get to it.
If you design it, you get money that way.
Yeah, right. Okay, there you go. Yeah, I can be creator.
Yes. Yeah. Do you have any advice for aspiring actors or voice actors?
Run.
Run?
Yeah. Get out while you can. You want to keep your sanity? Don't do it. No, I would only say that to people that would be competing with me for jobs. Advice, it's funny because a lot of people get into the voice industry in different ways. So sometimes you get the question, how do I get into the industry? And it really depends on a lot of different scenarios. Where you live, what kind of background you have, all things like that. There's different ways to get in there. My advice basically would be, if it's something you want to do, learn about it. All aspects of it. And don't pigeonhole yourself early on. I've had people ask me, how do I become a voice actor for anime? I specifically want to work on Naruto or something like that. And it's like, okay, first of all, voice acting is 2 words. It's not just one. Because you can do silly voices doesn't mean that you can do great performances with these voices. So voice acting, acting is probably the most important part of that phrasing. So explore acting. And with the way technology is now and the way the industry is blossoming through video games, through internet, whatever, and you know, cartoons, television shows, episodic, whatever, feature films, all that kind of stuff. There's lots of different vehicles that require voice acting, commercials, radio, all sorts of things. So do your research. It's not like these days you don't have to go to a library and try and find old dusty books on this business. It's a new business and it's expanding.
Yes. So
there's a lot of research out there to be discovered, and it's at our fingertips now. It's usually on our phone. So it's getting easier to kind of do your own research and then, you know, make your own decisions based on that. The only other thing that I will say is that the voice industry is like pretty much every other entertainment industry, where it's a tough business.
It's competitive.
It's very competitive, and it's cutthroat, because there's, if I'm fussy or if I'm a bit of a pain, they're not going to have to bring me back, because there's hundreds, thousands of other people that want to do what I'm fortunate enough to do. So they'll just kick me aside and move on to the next person. It's a little less difficult. So you have to have a pretty thick skin, because I often call it an industry of rejection. And if you take that stuff too seriously, it can be pretty heavy and weighty on you. You have to kind of do what you can.
So a while ago you mentioned that you dabbled in music.
Uh-oh, okay.
What do you mean by dabbling in music?
No. Well, I play the recorder, and I'm getting pretty good, and I'm expanding it to kazoo a little bit. No. I don't know, when I was in, let's see, it was grade 7, I believe, I decided that I was going to be a rock star. You know, that's not exactly
rock star.
I was I want to do it all, you know? A rocking astronaut, why not? I want to rock the moon at one point. Hello moon! Are you ready to rock and roll? But I was starting to discover that I had musical tastes and interests and whatnot, and guitar was something that I was just drawn to. The mystique of it, the sound of it, the freedom that you have on it. So I'm a December baby. My birthday is on December 26th.
Wow.
So, it can be kind of a pain because you get forgotten all the time, but it can also, you can use it to your advantage, for you fellow Capricorns out there. You know, so I'm in grade 7, and I decided I wanted a guitar for, you know, a present. So I was able to combine my Christmas and my birthday gift, and I received a guitar. So I started playing guitar, not well. And then, so shortly thereafter, I graduated from elementary school and was going into high school, so I decided to sign up for a beginner band. I'm like, awesome, I'll learn how to play this thing, and then I'll be a rock star! And so I show up for day 1 of beginner band, and there's no guitar in beginner band. So now I'm looking at like flute, trumpet, trombone, tuba, things like that, and they were really intimidating for me at the time. So I said, how about in the back corner there, the drums? And the instructor basically said, well, I don't know, you have to be able to do specific things to be a drummer. So he kind of sat me on the kit and, you know, got me to play a very rudimentary beat. And I assumed that I did it well enough that he was like, okay, you're our new percussionist. And it wasn't just drums, it was, you know, the big timpani drums and mallets and bells and woodblock when it was like, and sleigh bells at Christmas time and stuff.
Or the cowbell.
Oh, the cowbell. Yeah, always need more cowbell, right? And so that kind of got me into being a kit drummer. And when you're that age, you know, friends of mine were playing guitar already and whatnot. And once you're the drummer, like, oh, a buddy of mine's a drummer, well, now you're the drummer, right? Any kind of musical project. Oh, I know a drummer, so now you're the drummer. So I was behind the kit for a long time. And so I became the drummer. And then kind of more recently, I had my kit set up, my old band, which is now split up. We had a rehearsal space and all that. But when we kind of departed, I ended up taking my kit back, and so it's disassembled and whatnot. And as a drummer, when you need a full kit to practice and whatnot, there's only specific places that you can do that.
Yeah.
And the place that I'm in right now, they wouldn't like it if I start pounding on the kit. So so I picked up the guitar again. This is, you know, and I'd always kind of, every once in a while I pick up the guitar, but when I didn't have the drums as an outlet for my musical interests, then the guitar kind of shows up. So I play guitar and I play drums, and I love doing them both. And I'm not expecting to be a big rock star or anything like that, but you know, I like to write little bits of music, and I'm not usually brave enough to play my own music for other people, but I like to, you know, learn other people's music as well, and just jam out and just play little songs. I had my guitar with me this weekend, and
you played, yes?
I played a couple songs at my panel, one of my panels, and I also, this is what happens when you're in the green room and you have drinks on Thursday night, is Random Gibberish was playing a concert this weekend. And so I was chatting with them, and I mentioned that I had my guitar, or somebody told them that I had brought my guitar with me, and they're like, "Oh, we got to get you up on stage for a song." I'm like, "Oh, that sounds awesome, but I don't really know if I could play your music." And he's like, "All right, I'll go print out some lyrics and write in the chords." And look at the sheet, I'm like, "Oh, I can play these chords." So next thing I know, I'm up on stage performing with Random Gibberish for a tune. So it's just something that I enjoy to do. And okay, here's a parallel. You know, a little segue here. Me playing the drums was very therapeutic. There was at one point I was in a house where I'd kind of built a jam room in the basement, and it was more or less completely soundproofed. And I used a lot of MacGyver methods to do that. You know, shag carpeting that I got off Craigslist, and I had it on the walls and the ceilings, and I'd use old, you know, pallets and cut them down and stuff them with insulation and bolt them to the walls and whatnot. So I had a great little sanctuary for my drum kit. And I'd come home from a tough day, either at studio or at the other job, and just let it all out on the drum kit, and that felt like therapy to me. So that's kind of an excellent way to just shake out some of the frustrations and the tensions and whatnot, is, you know, playing an instrument, be it guitar or drums. And, you know, studio gigs happen when they happen, and not all the characters are like Light Yagami and Death Note, where you're screaming maniacally and laughing and whatnot.
Gets your attention that way.
Yeah, so like, I mean, that was free therapy. It was incredible. So it's nice to. It actually was paid therapy. Yeah, but I think a series like that has left its own marks. You know, like new methods of therapy. Am I starting to go a little crazy in the process? Anything's possible. But I love having little outlets like that, and most of the outlets that I enjoy, if it's not sports related, they're creative endeavors. Even grabbing my sketchbook and just doodling and stuff like that is stuff that I find helps me get out the energies that I need to.
Okay. So before we close, one more question. What is the weirdest thing that you've experienced in your life, or that you've done? Weirdest.
How long is this interview? Because I got a long list of weird things. One weird thing that I've done. Almost everything I do seems weird to me. Okay. Well, okay, yeah, it's a long list, but I'll talk about one. I'll try and keep it somewhat convention related. As I've mentioned probably a couple times already in this interview, I love Halloween. It's like my favorite time of year. And years ago, me and a buddy of mine, we were renting this house, and we started throwing these killer Halloween parties. And I decided that I wanted to be Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid. So that outfit, if I was going to put it together, required a sewing machine. So I borrowed my mother's sewing machine. And I remembered from grade 8's life skills class, so I think for like 1 week we touched on sewing. And well, I didn't remember the whole thing. All I remembered was you put the thread here and how to thread it through the machine so it eventually goes through the needle. And I remembered that there was something in here, it's called a bobbin.
Yes.
That required thread, and it had to. So I remembered how to do that, and then the rest I just started fumbling my way through the strap work and everything, because he's got kind of a SWAT outfit and all that. And I realized there's a lot of things you can do, you know. A sewing machine is just like a pencil or a glue gun or something. It's, you know, a great little tool. Yeah, it's like, you know, a power saw or a drill. And I love all those things. Power tools, you know, I consider my sewing machine just another power tool, for, you know, in my arsenal. Not necessarily as cool when you're a guy as, like, you know, a table saw, but it gets the job done when needed.
And then it's okay.
There you go, right? Yeah. So that kind of led me to costuming a little bit, and I became this Halloween monster. I'd start to have ridiculous ideas for costumes and whatnot. So the weird thing that I did, I guess, is at one point, and this is how a lot of my creative creative ideas start is where I'll think of something and I'll think that's absurd. And then I'll be like, I think I can make it. So in keeping with the time of year, since it's Halloween and everything, one of my more ridiculous or weird costumes was, years ago, I decided that I had never dressed up as a Star Wars character, like not even as a kid. I might have been R2-D2 at one point, when it was like a plastic masks with the little bib type thing, but I was too young to remember. So I decided that, you know what, I'm going to make a Star Wars costume. So my idea for the Star Wars costume was Han Solo, because everybody wanted to be Han.
Duh.
Originally I thought Han and Carbonite might be kind of cool, but I thought, I won't be able to move.
No.
I don't want to be on a wall all day. It's hard to get candy when you're stationary. So I decided, okay, I'm going to do Han on a Tauntaun. And I'd never done anything like that before, but I think with the result, Jim Henson would have been proud.
Good.
Because I made Lucky is the name of my Tauntaun, and so like my legs were the Tauntaun's legs, and I had these little dummy Han Solo legs and stuff. But I also put a zipper on the back of his neck so I could put my hand there, make him talk and move, and his eyes blink
Very
and everything.
creative.
Yeah, so it was. These are the ridiculous and weird things that I do sometimes. I get an idea in my head, and I dismiss it right away, and then I pull up the sketchbook and realize, wait a sec, if I do some Tom and Jerry style, schematics, and I might be able to bodge this together somehow. And it's kind of nice when you have these creative outlets and you start to learn how to use new tools. Just like when I was learning how to use computer programs for the graphic design, whatever. Same thing when you're learning how to use power tools or sewing machines. It's all experience. You work on something like Solid Snake, and then the next year you do Aragorn. And then after that you do Indiana Jones. Then you work your way up to Han on a Tauntaun or Ash from Evil Dead. Or Chuck Green from Dead Rising 2, which was a jacket that I made as part of a costume, and that actually put me in the hospital. That's a whole other story. Sewing can be dangerous. Cosplaying can be dangerous. If you come and see me at a convention sometime, ask me about it. I'll show you the X-ray. It's kind of epic.
It is.
Really?
I'm a fool. Yeah. So there you go. Weird. Yeah, okay. So to kind of sum that up, what's the weirdest thing that you've done? Put myself in a hospital making a Halloween costume. That's pretty weird.
There you go.
No.
Yep. Well, thank you for spending time with us, and I hope the rest of the convention and after party goes well.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me. This has been a pleasure. Cheers.
Quick question. Do you have a website?
I'm working on it. Here's the thing. Obviously I've kind of discussed that I do several things, and for me to put all that stuff out there is a little intimidating, but it is kind of on my list of things to do on the bucket list, where I'm going to start sharing some of these embarrassing passions of mine with the rest of the world, and not worrying about how everybody reacts to it. It'll just be a little something to kind of say, this is what I do, take it or leave it. So we're getting there. Stay tuned.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Brad. And if you want to catch My Little Rock Star along with John St. John and Random Gibberish, check out the Weird Review YouTube channel. And from Detroit, Michigan and Youmacon 2013, this has been the Weird Review.